It's rolling.
So this is the first generation Milwaukee Fuel 18 gauge brad nailer. I got this tool over 5 years ago. I was looking between DeWalt and Milwaukee when I was going to start my company. I had worked for my dad for a long time and then went off on my own, and I really wanted battery tools, and I went with Milwaukee because I thought they had a battery nail gun setup that was worth going with, and turns out they didn't. And I need y'all to understand what we're trying to do here. We're trying to do tools that are at least 2, 3+ years old. Most of my tools at this point are anywhere from 3 to 5 years old. We want to do this because we don't want unboxing videos. We don't want videos about this $100 tool versus the $300 professional tool and how they're both the same, because they're not. We abuse our tools. We use our tools each and every day. That wear and tear shows up. There are some great brands out there for the everyday tool user that cost a little bit more. There are some great tools out there for the DIYer who's using them on the weekends that cost a lot less. I'm just trying to show you what I have in my lineup. We'll eventually get to other tools and other lineups, but I just want you to get that little understanding before I get into the video here. So this is an 1.25 inch. I'm not trying to beat up manufacturers. I'm just trying to show you what I do and don't like about tools, and why I think they're good and why I don't think they're good. And if they don't do what I want them to do as a professional, I'm going to be brutally honest with you about it. 1.5 inch nails. Did I say 1.25 inch? They're 1.5 inch nails. Standard common material that you would drive into for a stud. Softer than pine. First, we're going with oak. This is my big gripe with them. I have done everything I can to get this to go down. I'm not going to even really bother. Well, I am going to bother talking about it. The mechanism for the safety is so hard on this. No matter what your material is, you depress into it. When you're shooting an 18 gauge nail, you're trying not to leave marks, but your safety is automatically going to leave a mark. It was an issue for me. So this is the oak. By golly, it actually drove. This thing never drives, but it did there. Good for it. This is some standard clamshell base made out of finger joint material, pre-prime pine. And it drove, of course. Good for you. Good for you. You never did this for me when I needed you to. Some clear pine. Oh, here we go. 3 nails. This, I would say, hardest, softest, second hardest so far. Second hardest, it did not drive. I would have had to punch that nail. So that was, as I'm using it, I'm remembering that too. It was the inconsistency that really bugged me. I would drive, and then it wouldn't drive, and then drive, wouldn't drive. Here's some Poplar Scribe. And that one did drive. It's a pretty big hole that it makes. Like if you look in the Scribe there, it does make a pretty big hole too for an 18 gauge. You know, of course you're gonna putty it, but you do want the 18 gauge to not be such a heavy hole.
Another thing is, you got a straight on shot with all of these. When you're trying to install casing in the base, it's not.
Yeah, if you ever got to put an angle on
like
it.
putting that giant tip on the edge of the casing between the reveal and the casing, and then trying to get that nail to sink properly.
And if you're bump shooting,
yeah, it doesn't happen.
All right, so there's your bump shots. I would have to drive that. I would have to drive that. That clearly I'd have to drive. That's a 8 that it's sticking up. I'd have to definitely drive that. I'd have to drive that. So I was bump shooting. Yeah, if you concentrate, that's what I haven't used this in a while. We keep it for emergencies when we're just trying to tack stuff together. If you do sit here straight on, drive it and hold down, it will drive it every time. But who's doing that on the job? You're moving, you're trying to go, you're trying to get it done. Let's go, let's go, let's go. 1, 2, 3. It just doesn't. It doesn't do it, man. It's not a good tool. But look, I'm not doing this to beat up Milwaukee. It was their first generation. Nice try, didn't work. And that was really day one for me with this tool. 5 years on, I still keep it in the van. It still does serve a purpose. But I'm interested. Who has the first generation? Please help me out, y'all. Send me a link to your video. Make your own video. You know, comment to me. Hey, they've corrected this. The tip is much easier to depress. They do have a better adjustment on it. This is bottomed out. Like I've taken pliers and bottomed it out to get it as bottomed out as possible. So let me know if you think the first generation is as slack as I think it is, and if they've really stepped it up and gotten it right with the second generation, because I really do like battery. It's great not to have to pull cords. I've seen the DeWalt on job sites, and the guys that have the DeWalts do really like the DeWalts. They haven't really complained the same way I have about my first gen. So please take that time for me. Please help me out here. I'm not just trying to put up content just to put up content. I'm trying to help y'all see what I'm going through, learn from y'all as well. So let me know what you think and what you have. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff.